Antonio, and welcome to this edition to Cover to Cover. And thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Caitlin Cowart with the San Antonio Public Library. The library makes rich cultural and intellectual resources available to all. As a welcoming community gathering place, the library plays an important role in the cultural education of the community. This past December, the San Antonio Public Library was honored to host internationally renowned Taiwanese artist Long Bin Chin and his exhibit, The Book Garden. Here to tell us more is Ruth Kiego, Public Services Administrator for the San Antonio Public Library. Ruth, thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm so excited to be talking about this exhibit. It is absolutely amazing, and it's at Central Library, in the gallery at Central Library.
Yes.
And so tell me a little bit about Long Bin Chin, the artist who brought the exhibit here, and what is the exhibit exactly? What is included in the display?
Happy to. It's a remarkable exhibit because it is so just fascinating. And Long Bin Chin, as you mentioned, is Taiwanese. He is from Taiwan, born in Taiwan, went to school and got his Bachelor of Arts in Taiwan, but then came to the United States in his early 20s, and also, got his Master's of Fine Arts in New York City. And he started in 1993 working with books as a medium for creating sculpture, which is not something you would think of using traditionally. You think of metal, you think of stone. And so a lot of the work that he did before then was very traditional in terms of the materials he used, but then starting in 1993, he really started to break out this new way of working with materials. And he really played with the solidness of books, juxtaposed with the wispiness of the paper, creating different textures and surfaces. And if you look at the works in the space, it really, it's very organic. It has a very organic feel to it, even though when you look at it more closely, you realize what you're really looking at is books of different sizes and shapes and types. Many of the books that he uses are discarded books, and those books are phone books, there are magazines, lots of books that we see at the library all the time that people try to donate but no longer have current value because they are now dated. And so a lot of those materials, when you look at the cross sections of his pieces, you can turn and see, oh my goodness, he's used an entire set of encyclopedias for this work, and it's just fascinating. And when he spoke about his work when he visited San Antonio, he explained that it's a rebellious act to do this type of thing to books, to, in a sense, destroy them in Chinese culture. And so, but for him, he feels he is actually giving them new life and a new way to speak to people. So it's very different in terms of his interpretation. And, he rescues the discarded knowledge and makes it have a completely different interpretation. And it's just wonderful watching people take it in when they see it at the Central Library.
Yeah, and I think it's very interesting the way that you can see the book spines. Like from the front, you see this, very dramatic stone-looking type sculpture. You think it is stone. Then when you walk around to the back and you see the books and you see the names of the books, the titles of the books,
Right.
And then you go back to the front and you're just having this experience of just looking at something from a different perspective.
It's like not judging a book by its cover.
Yes.
I mean, it truly
Literally,
is.
yes.
It's very interesting watching people take in the exhibit because they do have that aha moment of, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that's what I was looking at.
Yes.
And people will often talk about, what books they see, and it's fun seeing young children mixed in with adults because they all have kind of a sense of wonder about them when they see it, which is a very unique thing,
Yes.
especially with art exhibits, because sometimes people look at things and they look puzzled, but this is very different. They look engaged and very drawn into what they're seeing.
Yes, and I think it's interesting that you had mentioned like the adults and the children, because around the sculptures there are these stones that are also made of the printed material, and the landscape of things to look at the floor level. And I think that that means a lot to children because they're not just
Right.
staring, looking up at something that's very far away from them, and they're drawn into the experience.
Right. And, when we had Long Bin Chen here in December, and he was here for the opening, we did get to talk with him a bit, and it was very interesting. He even picked up one of the stones that he made out of a book, and he showed us that the pages were still, you could still move them on the sides of some of them, because his process is pretty fascinating.
Yes.
He takes different books, presses them together, often uses, he said, very long fasteners, like big nails and screws and things, and gets it all together, and doesn't use what you would think. Some people thought, he said, that people think I glue them all together. He said, I don't do that. I fasten it together with metal, and then I sort of epoxy the outside edges that are most exposed to make it all stay together, and then it's easier to carve it. And he said, some books are much easier to work with than others.
I bet. I would think encyclopedias in particular would be very challenging because of the size, and a lot of times the thickness of the cover.
And the paper, he was saying, paperbacks, they slice like butter, and others not so much. But the process he goes through is pretty amazing. And, just hearing him talk about Eastern and Western cultures and how they've influenced him, the Eastern being, Zen gardens and things of that nature. When you walk into the exhibit, you automatically, I do at least, feel at peace and automatically drawn in, and everything else seems to kind of fade away. I'm just thinking about what I'm seeing. And the Western piece, you'll see the iconic busts of Renaissance men, Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo there, amongst things like the lizards he created just for San Antonio. And it's just kind of remarkable how it all plays together. It's pretty fascinating.
Yes, absolutely it is. And he's such a nice man. He really is a pleasure. Speaking of that, the story of how this exhibit ended up in San Antonio is a pretty interesting story.
Yes, it is. It's fascinating. And, our library director, Ramiro Salazar, in 2014, he went to our sister city in Taiwan, which is Kaohsiung City, and they were opening their new main library. And one of his works was the centerpiece, a public art installation for the new facility, and our director was just blown away by this use of books and how he could see people just responding to that, and he felt that was something he really wanted to see happen in San Antonio and at the Central Library. So here we are, and he drew together several different partners for us, and I'm going to read because I know I'll forget.
Oh, please do, please do.
The International Relations Office and Economic Development Department of the City of San Antonio, the Department for Cultural and Creative Development, Ministry of Culture and of the Republic of China and Taiwan, the Taiwan Academy of the Taipei Economic and Cultural Office in Houston, and of course our own San Antonio Public Library Foundation. So that's a lot of teamwork, but you can imagine, it's a lot to pull together. Yeah,
and it's a great example of, working together in partnership. You can do so much more and bring so much more to the community than you could on your own. And, not only was our library director, Ramiro Salazar, very fascinated by the artwork, but he and Long Bin Chen became friends and, along this process. And I just think that's really a sweet story, and just makes the exhibit itself so much more meaningful. So tell me, when are the exhibit hours?
The exhibit hours are Tuesdays and Thursdays from 4 to 8 p.m., Saturdays and Sundays from 11 to 4 p.m. And of course, we've got group tours available, and you just, we'll show a number later that'll show you how to book those tours.
Well, thank you so much, Ruth, for being here. I really appreciate hearing about the Book Garden exhibit.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. And for more information about the exhibit, please visit www.mysapple.org. And the Book Garden exhibit by Long Bin Chin will be at Central Library through February 20th. And there is also a program that day. So the details of that program, he will be here himself to talk about his artwork and how he makes the pieces. So visit our website for that. It's now time for a short break, but when we come back, Carver Branch Library Manager D.L. Grant is here to discuss Black History Month at the library. Stay tuned.
The gallery at San Antonio Central Library has been transformed into a book garden, a home to oversized southwestern lizards, busts of Renaissance men, Zen rocks, and other sculptures, all created by Taiwanese-born artist Long Bin Chen. As the exhibit opened, we talked to Long Bin Chen about how his work has evolved and what ideas and materials are under the surface of these carvings. The lizards were made especially for this installation, but the other pieces go back as much as 20 years and have appeared in very different exhibits, from Los Angeles to Charleston, South Carolina, Atlanta, Rome, and Hong Kong. Long Bin Chen's sculptures are much, much more than first meets the eye.
Most time, from the front part, most people we think this wood carving or marble or stone carving. Then turn around, then they will find some image or some product can show out what kind of book of this material come from.
So the inspiration for the shape comes from the book?
Yeah. So, and all the object, all the sculpture, sometimes we relate to the title of the book, and we involve with another issue. The shape was not only meaning from the form and the meaning or figure, and also relate to the inside of the book.
Long Bin Chen said he was influenced by Marshall McLuhan, who authored the pioneering and influential theory that the medium is the message, in a book published in 1964, the year Long Bin Chen was born. McLuhan wrote that the characteristics of the medium have more of an effect on society than the content it carries. Looking at his own work, Long Bin Chen said, "The medium transforms the subject and becomes the message."
So, in beginning, I used a lot of phone book, because the one phone book they will contain about thousand name, company, and people's telephone number. It means a small sculpture can contain a small society, and it's a big, very surprise for me and for people. The one sculpture they will become a small society inside. You can find some small stone I was carving 20 years ago. Yeah, like this one. This one was made from the phone book. So because phone book was from the recycling paper, so the quality not so good, and then very easy to turn yellow. But it's already 20 years ago. You still can see the texture. All the I believe this a white page, and then the color become to brown, turn to the yellow. Yeah, and let's think about like some small stone, and inside have a thousand telephone number inside. One small society inside. So it's exciting to me. For many years, I was finding the material from the street, because in New York, it's very easy to find a book, and almost every week they have 2 days for people to throw away recycling paper. Then we collect the paper from the street. And also the phone book that we update every year 2 times, even sometimes 3 times. So it's during the change and recycling day is that I can pick up so many new phone books. So almost the material was free for me. Then later I find out I can traveling because every city also have their recycling system. So I doing a lot of residency in a different city, different country, because the machine is the same. I can find the same machine, same set up my studio workshop very easy. So since I think since 2000, I begin to a lot of residency from New York to LA to Atlanta, and then to Roma, to India, to Hong Kong, because people was exciting this new way to carving book become artwork, and I developed this kind of technique, and a lot of people very exciting. So some gallery owner or some art institution director, they were interesting and invited me go to do a residency and find a local material, turn to the art show. So I almost doing a residency more than 10 years from the city to the city from different country. Yeah.
So tell me about the technique. You said you could use telephone books. You said you used other kinds of books. So you put them together and then you cover them?
Yeah, and in beginning, I was making small head, and look like a focal art. And actually, inside of book is no anything, so you still can open. But look like a stone carving, but actually was soft because my artwork you can open like similar like open a book. So every page was separate. Then later become because I need to make a big sculpture or big object. Then I put school nail. Now I put some coating. So from the soft sculpture turn to the hard, and then turn to from single object, single sculpture become installation.
And so Longbin Chen's work evolved from soft sculptures that open like books to larger objects held together by screws and nails with a coating, a hard stone-like carvable surface. Longbin Chen's work went from a single piece of art to a collection arranged in an installation, like the book garden he created in the gallery of the San Antonio Central Library.
Welcome back to Cover San Antonio. Today we're talking about the library's role in cultural education. The San Antonio Public Library honors diversity and celebrates diversity in the San Antonio community. Every February is Black History Month, a time to honor and recognize the central role of Black Americans in U.S. history. The library celebrates Black History Month with a variety of special events and programs. And here to tell us more about these programs is D.L. Grant, manager of the Carver Branch Library. D.L., welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I always love having you on as a guest, and I appreciate you being here to talk about Black History Month.
Well, this is fun. It's an interesting time of the year. I continue learning about the culture.
Yes. Well, that's what it's all about, and
Yes, indeed.
the library is a perfect venue for that. So, can you tell me a little bit about what the library has planned this year for Black History Month?
The library, okay, what we did was we started thinking about, okay, how can we help people to learn more about the culture? What can we expose people to? You try to do things different, come at people in a way that they perhaps are not used to. So what we did was, while an art exhibit might be something that you would see often, what we decided to do this year, and this exhibit kicked off at a number of locations. It was the exhibit that showcased the images of Benin in West Africa.
Yes.
That blew me away, and I'm one of the branches. My branch was one of the ones that hosted the event. The images are absolutely extraordinary because I did not know a lot about the history, the rich culture of Benin. And those images are so rich because they show how the people celebrate the beauty of their festivals and things like that. How the country has opened itself up to tourism to help people to learn about what goes on and the history. And if you do love history, it's a great tourist destination. Those images will put you in the mood to explore, to venture out, because, like I said, if you are interested in history, Benin is one of the locations on that continent that did have a role in the African slave trade. And if you are interested in learning about what took place, how it all happened, perhaps your ancestry was impacted by that, it's something that would definitely pull you in. But if you just like history, or you're compelled to know more about the human experience, this is something for you. So we have that display that's going on. Again, it kicked off during Dream Week, and it continues during African American Heritage Month, also known as Black History Month.
The whole month of February.
Oh yeah, and like my branch, Carver, will feature like a film presentation, Glory Road, African Americans in college football, at the college football level. We're bringing in longtime educator and running coach from Sam Houston High School, Emory Randall. She retired, but she has not just been sitting around in her retirement. She wrote a book, The Josie Effect. So we partnered with the Friends of Carver Branch. The branch and the Friends will be celebrating the release of her book, The Josie Effect, which is very, very interesting, The Josie Effect. So we hope folks will come out for that. But there's just a whole bunch of things that we want people to turn out for.
Yeah, and I think it's wonderful that you're offering so many different formats to learn, because everybody has, different preferences for how they like to learn about different cultures and different things. And sometimes it's through photographs, sometimes it's through reading on your own, attending a program, having a conversation. And that's also a really important part of the programs that we offer during Black History Month and our other diversity months as well, that we bring in panelists, presenters, who then spark up interesting conversation. And tell me your experience, some experiences that you've had, some of the programs you've offered at Carver.
What we try to do is it's always about, at the end of the day, it's always about what uplifts the culture, what uplifts the community. And so we always try to bring in things that are going to help people to learn. We have our ear to the ground, and we're monitoring what's going on in the news, because we know that that's going to impact the community. And a lot of times people will come into the branch and say, we got to talk about this. So we have organized town hall forums that have been very, very well attended. And those are just issues that come about because somebody in the community was concerned and thought, wait, we need to share this. How can we help people to understand more about this? This situation might impact them. The headlines, there's always something to grab people in the headlines. And when we do have these events, other things happen. Other programming kind of jumps off from that, because somebody will have an interesting story, or somebody will say, well, this relates to this event or this event, so, well, let's explore that as well. So at Carver Branch, and not just at Carver Branch, but throughout the San Antonio Public Library system, we are interested in bringing in people who will, again, share information, because we're all about knowledge and helping people to grow in that way. But we've brought in, we just had our Professor Carrie Lattimore from Trinity University. He's chair of the history department, and he delivered our Martin Luther King address. And he talked about things, again, being an African American, a lifelong resident of San Antonio, he talked about things that I did not know. He talked about abolitionist Maria Stewart, her plight. And his overall message, we talked about being positive and uplifting. Okay, how does she overcome adversity, being a slave and speaking out for it? I mean, well, we would want to draw inspiration from her example. So always got people willing to come in who have written books, share knowledge. And this is just going to be a great time because we've just added more of that as we focus in on the African American achievement and the culture this time of the month.
Yeah. And there's so much to learn about the general themes of, courage and strength of character.
That is so true. Because a lot of times people will think Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, and that is wonderful. But so many others had a role in that. You think of why we celebrate Black History Month in the first place. Carter G. Woodson, that many will call the father of Black History Month, was troubled because it had been said, or it was widely believed that African American culture didn't contribute anything to society. And it's like, cooking, literature, arts, and we don't matter? Okay, so he was like, no, that's not true. So he fought to establish what was called Negro History Week. It began as a week, and then it grew into a month-long celebration, which we now observe in the month of February.
Yes. Well, I'm really excited about the programs that we have at the library and the passion that you have for the programs that you offer and what you have planned.
It's infectious. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, exactly. And all of that's available at mysapple.org. All of the list of events at Carver Branch Library and our other branch libraries will also be having events and programs throughout the month, so please check that out. Is there anything else that you want to add? Why personally is it important to you, DL, for the library to honor Black History Month?
We are information professionals. We are all about learning, and I'm all about learning about everybody's culture because everybody contributes something. But again, I like to make the point that the African American is like everybody else. You want to be appreciated. You want what you did, your contributions, to matter just like everybody else. And there's so many ways that you can experience the culture. Say if you don't, if you're unable to attend any of the events. We were talking about authors before we began taping. There's just so many other ways you can explore the culture. One of my favorite books, Lawrence Graham has written, some years back, Our Kind of People. How many people knew that the African American has an elite social class?
Yes.
Now, it's kind of controversial, but it is there. There is an elite social class, and it's fascinating how it developed. And he takes a very, very deep journey. You explore thoroughly how it existed, why it existed, the psychology behind that. That's a fascinating book. My favorite author, people who know me well will know that I'm always going to push Zora Neale Hurston. The writing, the power of her words is so fascinating. It takes you a little while to get used to reading. Like, say, if you wanted to cut your teeth on a Hurston novel, I would recommend her seminal work, Their Eyes Were Watching God. It takes a little while to get into because you're learning to appreciate the dialect that people spoke in way back then. These were people who were slaves and had not had education or access to education. And it's a beautiful story, and it's a clever way that she weaves folklore and history into this novel. It's about a woman named Janie in Florida in the 1930s, and a terrific hurricane that comes in and changes everybody's lives, and it's in a very devastating way. So those are a couple of books you just might want to read.
I'm going to read that exact one because I bought it. I have it on my bookshelf. I bought it at the San Antonio Book Festival.
You will not put it down.
A couple of years ago.
You will not put it down, especially when they get to the hurricane scene.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to it. And thank you so much, DL, for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
All
it's
right.
good being here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd like to thank both of our guests, both Ruth and DL, for being here today. For more information about these and other happenings coming up at the library, head to our website at www.mysapple.org or follow us on Twitter or Facebook. Tune in next month for our next edition to Cover to Cover. See you then.